Although it took a little while, Canon's RF lens lineup has finally got to a point where we've got a range of solid options. Although mostly limited to Canon glass, for now, a couple of my most used RF lenses are actually more on the budget friendly side. So whether you're like me and just after a really reliable setup that just gets the job done, or chasing the absolute best of the best, I've put together my ultimate tier list of every Canon RF lens I've personally used over the years. Ever since I first got my hands on the RF50 1.2 back when the original EOS R was launched, I've had the chance to shoot with a large range of RF lenses. So in this video, I'll be ranking them all, from the real masterpieces all the way down to the ones I think you can safely skip. If you disagree with where I place something, that's totally fair, but this is 100% my opinion. We all shoot differently, and while this list is partly for fun, I'll also highlight some of the obvious pros and cons of each of these lenses, so hopefully you can help decide where they might sit for you and your usage. I have used a lot of RF glass, but not every single lens, so let me know in the comments if you're curious about one that didn't quite make the list. All right, let's jump in. So starting with one of my favorites here, the RF 14 to 35 f4. This is an L series lens and it is always in the rotation for me. It's an epic little lens if you're happy to sacrifice a bit of light and bokeh, which I was. A seriously versatile wide angle zoom, 14 giving you that ultra wide perspective and stretching all the way to that sweet spot of 35mm, which is super handy. Sure, it only opens up to f4, but the real draw here is the size and weight. On the plus side, you're still getting that L series image quality on this one, just in a more compact and travel friendly package. Naturally, that L series branding does add to the price, but it's still a worthwhile lens. Overall, if you've got some faster primes in your kit, going with that f4 doesn't have to be a deal breaker, but it's a dependable workhorse that never lets me down in a really nice compact package. So let's drop this one into can't go wrong. So next up, basically the real competition to that last lens, the faster f2.8 version. This one 15 to 35mm, and yes, it is an L series lens as well. An incredibly popular one, but also much heavier. This is where you really feel that trade-off. If you want that constant f2.8 aperture, you're going to pay for it, both in money and size and weight. Honestly, if weight wasn't a factor, I'd probably sit this right alongside the f4 version, but since I actually traded out my 2.8 for the f4 version, I think naturally I have to place it just a notch lower. For me, that's the only significant reason. The f4 version, interestingly, does go slightly wider as well. And yes, at those wide focal lengths, even 1mm does actually make a noticeable difference. So I'm putting this one in totally worth it. And look, depending on your needs, it could naturally sit above that first lens for many people, but factor in your own needs and how you're going to use these lenses. So next up, a lens that I just couldn't get into. This is the RF 16mm f2.8 prime. Take this with a grain of salt. Even when I tested it briefly, I just knew this focal length wasn't for me in a prime. I don't like to shoot this wide that often, so 16mm just feels a little bit too limiting for me. But this might be different for you. The image quality is okay, not fantastic, but keep in mind this is one of Canon's cheaper prime lenses. Although I'm a prime guy, 24 is about the widest that I'm going to get good use out of. So for me, this one is a hard pass. It's going right down into not worth it. But hey, if you love shooting really wide and want that constant wide focal length for anything like vlogging, whatever it may be, it might still be worth considering for you. So next up, another prime, but this one I actually really enjoy. It's the 24mm f1.8 macro IS STM. It's more on the budget side, so not an L series lens. So let's get some of the negatives out of the way first. The barrel does extend during focusing, which becomes slightly annoying, especially when using filters. like I have on here, but it's not a deal breaker. I have found the motors just struggle a little bit with heavier filters when the barrel's extending like this. Like most of these cheaper lenses, the build quality isn't fantastic. It feels a little bit more plasticky. You can see I actually dropped this one and the lens is fine, but it's got a bit of a scratch on it. Image quality wise, it does have a few issues, but none which particularly get in the way for me. Check out my full review if you want a little bit more on this, but it's mostly only an issue if you need that edge-to-edge sharpness at really wide apertures like 1.8. Something like astrophotography. If shooting closer subjects, usually more in the middle of your frame, naturally your corners are going to be blurred out anyway, so it's not a big issue. We also get macro capabilities at a pretty wide focal length, which is nice, but where this lens really shines is definitely that size and weight. And versatility. 24mm is a fantastic focal length for a prime in my opinion. It's great for travel, street, even casual video. And honestly, I've got some great shots with it over the years. So while it's not perfect, I've got a lot of use out of this one, so that has to count for something. It might not be for everyone, but I'm putting up in totally worth it. On to, I think we're up to lens 5 now, the RF 24-105. Now, I did only use this one quite briefly back when I had the original EOS R, so take this rating with a grain of salt. It is a super versatile zoom and one I know a lot of people start with, especially as a kit lens. It covers that wide range and handles a bunch of different shooting situations. But this really wide focal range is actually the reason I don't really like this lens, which might be controversial. But I really believe having too many options like this, especially when you're learning, can actually really hurt your ability to compose thoughtfully. This idea of creative constraints aiding in creativity really holds true in my experience. That said, you can get some really solid image quality out of this lens, and I know plenty of people who enjoy it. So while it's not for me, I'll place it in not terrible, just not something I reach for. So next up, the 28mm 2.8 Pancake. Now this is one of the most underrated lenses in Canon's lineup if you ask me. If you can't tell by now, I care a lot about size and weight, and it doesn't get much smaller and lighter than this. The image quality for its size and price is also genuinely impressive. 28mm is such a versatile focal length as well, even favored for a lot of people over something like a 35. This lens is also great on something like the RV50 here or any crop sensor, as it gives you something closer to a 40mm equivalent, which is a beautiful natural walk around focal length. So combine that with the compact size and you've got a really nice pocketable little setup. As much as I would like to sneak this one into the masterpiece tier, it's not quite there, but it's still a beauty. Super fun, super useful, and for me, really can't go wrong. Alright, onto another small and light zoom, the RF 24-50 f4.5 to 6.3, again an STM lens. Honestly, this focal range sits right in my own sweet spot. So much of what I shoot is between 24 and 50, so I really wanted to love this lens, but it didn't quite get there for me. The STM focus motor and extending barrel are again worth mentioning, but what I didn't love was the way this lens actually extends a fair bit when you open it up. So it's nice that it does sit more compact when it's packed away in the locked position, but it's a tad annoying just to quickly open it up for run and gun shooting. And like other STM lenses, using heavier filters can obviously sometimes annoy the focusing system. That said, the size is great, focal range is solid, and the image quality is decent enough. So while it could have been a real favorite, this one for me lands in the not terrible category. Close, but not quite. Ooh, if I haven't upset you yet, this next one might. Surprisingly, I just don't use this popular zoom lens enough. This is the 24-70 f2.8 and yes, L series lens. As versatile as many people find this lens, it mostly gets skipped for me. It's sharp, it's fast, and seriously well built. But since I naturally just love to shoot so much on a 50mm prime, if I'm going to carry a heavier, larger lens like a 24-70, I'd rather just carry a faster 50mm prime. So personal preference here, but again, 24-70 is such a big range. If you're learning composition, stick with a prime initially if you can. Master that first, in my opinion. I don't actually own this lens for that reason. I have tested it at quite a few weddings. So while I know it's a staple for many and probably one of Canon's most well-rounded lenses, I just don't get excited by it. So the highest I can rank it is worth it. Again, just not for me. So the next two lenses I've decided to group together, mainly because I've only used them both pretty briefly, but honestly, for the size and price, these are pretty fantastic options, especially if you're after a more budget-friendly prime. So this is the 35 and 50mm 1.8 STM lenses. At the cheaper price point, they're not perfect, but both focal lengths are great for just chucking on your camera and sticking to one focal length, which means they're perfect for training your eye and improving your composition skills. So there's a lot to like about both of them. Sure, compared to Canon's more expensive primes, you will notice some compromises in image quality, but only when you go looking for them. For their price, they absolutely hold their own, especially for such a great size and weight. So I'm dropping these both in B, which is well worth it, especially if you're just getting started. They are epic little lenses to pick up. And while we're here, I should probably mention a few lenses I haven't got around to testing. The big 28-70 f2, yeah, never tried it. It's just too big and heavy for how I like to shoot. I know loads of people love it, especially wedding shooters, and that's fair enough. But again, I'm gonna reach for my 50mm prime instead every time. All right. Moving on through the 50mm primes, quick heads up, I haven't tested either of the new 24 or 35 VCM lenses, but I have been using the RF 50 1.4, which is on my camera here, the VCM, and honestly, it's become one of my most used lenses already. I will also talk about the f 1.2 version in a second, but I've actually done a full comparison on these two, both of which have their advantages. If the final image quality was the only thing that mattered, I'd always go for the f 1.2, no question. But as someone who travels a lot and does a ton of street photography, size and weight really is important to me, so the f 1.4 is just way easier to carry around all day, and the results are still fantastic. So I can't quite call it a masterpiece talking about that 1.4 VCM. It's going in, can't go wrong. A seriously solid lens. Onto the 1.2, and look, I just have to put this in the masterpiece tier. If I'm going to put any lens up there, it has to be this one. If you want that little bit of magic, well, you can mostly deal with the size and weight like I did for many years. I've always found it's just had that something special that I could never quite explain, but it shows up in your images. It's just special, and for me, 50 is just such a versatile focal length. So I'm going all in on this 50. Yep, it's a masterpiece. I had to pop one there. Onto another 1.2 lens, the 85 version. Now, I'll be referring to the one without that special de-soothing, focusing, whatever it is, coating, as there are two versions of this lens. They're already quite pricey. The one with that coating obviously is a bit more pricey again. And just like the 50mm, the image quality on this lens really is incredible. I've never owned it, but I have again used it at quite a few weddings. Again, the size and weight might be an issue for some. Although 85 is a great focal length, I personally just don't use it as much compared to say my 50mm, and these are seriously heavy lenses, so sadly I can't justify carrying both. But while you might personally rank this one way up the top, and I won't blame you for that, for me it's going in totally worth it. Incredible lens, and I've enjoyed trying it out, but just for those reasons, I don't actually own it. So we've gone through a few of my favorites now, but we still have a couple to come. And next up, a much more affordable 85. Sadly, my thoughts on this one have changed a bit over time. This is the 85 f2 macro IS STM, and to be fair, I did pick this one up secondhand in Japan. So maybe that's part of the issue. When I first got it, I actually really loved this lens. I found it compact and lightweight for an 85. F2 still giving you enough light to play with, even in those darker conditions, and it was still delivering some really great results. So there's definitely a lot to like about this lens. But with some of the other STM lenses, that external focusing barrel started to become a bit of a pain, and mine's now having a bit of issue focusing, which could be because I picked this one up secondhand. It might need a service and it will be totally fine. So although I did use this lens a lot to begin with, I have to drop it down in the not terrible category. It could be better, could just be my unit, so I can't judge too harshly. I'll update you if I do get it properly looked at, but for now, I think this sums it up pretty well. So next up, RF 70-200 f2.8L ISUSM, I think, another one that I've got a ton of use out of. Even though I often prefer a lighter 85mm prime if I can, this is the original version that extends when you zoom, so it does pack down reasonably small in your bag. It's not exactly light, but for a 70-200, I'd say it's reasonably manageable. In fact, when it first came out, I think it was one of the lighter ones on the market, though I think quite a few have snuck under now. Still, there's a lot to love. I've never had an issue with the external zoom, no dust, no weather sealing problems, touch wood, and image quality is just superb. It's really hard to fault if you're regularly working in this focal range. So I'm popping this one straight into totally worth it. I haven't tried the new Z version of this lens, but I'm fine with my version. I also haven't tried the F4, which no doubt is a great option for many wanting that smaller, lighter option as well. Also, if you're after a smaller, lighter option, another telephoto next up. This one much cheaper. Super lightweight too, the RF 100-400 f5.6 to f8. Honestly, it's a fantastic lens. At this price point, you're getting some seriously great image quality, way better than you might expect. Sure, it lacks weather sealing and isn't exactly a low light beast with that variable aperture, but as a first telephoto zoom, it's an excellent choice for a lot of people, especially if you want something lighter. So I can definitely recommend this one. If you do want a bit of a deeper dive, I've got a full review on the channel, so check that out as well. In terms of its ranking, I feel like it probably deserves to sit alongside that 70-200. They have very different advantages, but both great in their own right. So I'm popping it into that's totally worth it. So that's the list, every RF lens I've personally ever used. Hopefully somewhat helpful or maybe entertaining. Remember, this is just my take based on how I like to shoot. So if your favorite did end up a little bit lower than you'd like, don't take it personally, as we all shoot differently. If you've got any questions or want to defend that favorite, drop it in the comments. I'm keen to hear what you're using and enjoying. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe and check out some of my other videos too. Keep on creating, keep on growing, my friends. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.